Good day. My name is Gary Truschelet. This is my second video on my YouTube channel called Landscape Launchpad. And the name is kind of descriptive of what I do. I'm a landscape designer, have been for many, many years, do all kinds of exterior and some interior design work, but wanted to bring you up to date on some ideas that I had that I think people might benefit from, having to do with hiring a landscape designer, architect, or consultant to help you with a project. So I'm doing this one tonight from the homeowner's perspective. If you're a homeowner and you need help in your yard, how do you find a good designer, consultant to help you with it? Well, here's my take on it. I've got some interesting stuff to go over with you. So you're going to hire a landscape designer or consultant, because if you're not prepared and don't really know what you need, how are you going to fill them in and let them know what it is you're interested in having them help you with? Does that sound, that's probably a little wordy way of saying it, but in other words, you just need to have a list of all the stuff that you want to have done or take care of or modify or make pretty in your yard. And it helps also to make a scrapbook or take some screenshots from your computer of things that you really like so that you can pass those along as well. A designer is really only as good as you are at filling him in on what it is you need done or what your needs are, what your likes are, what your dislikes are. So make sure your list is fairly complete, fairly detailed, and give him all the information that you can, because he can do a better job for you if he has that information. Things like, I have a slope in my yard that is eroding every time it rains. Dirt goes in my neighbor's yard and washes away. I don't know what to do there. I have a beautiful view in my backyard. I can see the lake, it's just gorgeous, but there's some ugly stuff in my yard that it doesn't take advantage of that beautiful view. And on the other side of my yard, I have a kind of an ugly view of a neighbor's backyard, and I don't feel like I want to be looking into their backyard all the time. So I'd kind of like to screen that, do something there to take care of that. So those are the types of things that they need to know. Also, do you want an outdoor kitchen, patio, fire pit, pergola, a place to get out of the weather, like a little retreat somewhere that you can sit out even if it's raining and enjoy. So any of that type of information is very, very beneficial to a designer. It helps him know what your goals are, know what your problem areas are. That just makes the relationship go much smoother. Now, that's one thing I wanted to talk about as well, is you're going to have this ongoing relationship, because this is not a quick thing that you're talking about getting into. It sometimes takes time to develop a plan that fits with your goals, and the designer knows that it will work and be a place that you'll enjoy having without maybe a ton of maintenance, because that's going to be something that you'll want to address, is the maintenance of it. That, and helping him know what kind of style you like. You can look at the house, and if it's modern or if it's contemporary or if it's an old English or colonial architecture, then there are certain things, certain styles of landscaping that go with those things. So you can let him know that you're not real interested in a very formal look, even though your house may be somewhat formal, but you're more of an informal person. And so that's going to give him a cue that he doesn't want to do a lot of hedging and a lot of straight lines. And so it makes it a little easier for him to suggest things that you might like. Well, let's talk a little bit about budget. Now, there's two budgets. There's a budget for the design, the consulting, and you need to have at least an idea of what you're willing to spend to get this done. And then there's the budget for the overall construction of the project, whether it's a phase, done in phases, or whether it's a one-time do the whole thing all at once type of job. Be honest with the designer, letting them know that you only have this amount in your budget to work with, because it's hard for a lot of people to do. They don't like to share what they're willing to spend with other people, but it's a real important tidbit of information that helps the designer design something that you can afford, or that's within your budget to do. There's been times I've worked with people and we've gotten the design done and it's just complete and it's got everything in it they want. And then you're putting the pricing all together to have this project installed, and it's just way over the top of what they ever dreamed it would cost to do. That's the designer's fault, really, for not asking the right questions and getting you to give them at least a rudimentary basic budget. So I'm going to say discuss that truthfully with the designer. It helps in a lot of ways. If you've done a big design and it's way out of your ballpark to get it done, then you've wasted all that time and spent all that money. And now you've got to go back and have the designer refine it, cut it down, take it down to bare bones, and start over, basically. That's a lot of wasted time and effort that's gone in that could have been avoided. So that's what I'm saying. It's just be honest and truthful with what you're willing to put into the project. We talked a lot about the getting to know your designer, being honest with them, but garden design is a very personal thing. And the designer needs to have enough information from you to make it your garden. He's not designing a garden for himself. If he was, it would be totally different, I'm sure, than what he's going to design for you. Give him your personal experiences, your personal ideas and feelings, and what you want the garden, how you want the garden to make you feel, how you want to enjoy it, how do you want to use it. If you share those things with him, it will become a personal garden of yours. Of course, you'll have some help getting there, but at least it will have some things in it that will mean something to you. Also, you might discuss with your designer the variety of design plans that are there, that are available, that he can do. In other words, you may have him do a layout for pathways, patios, outdoor structures, but you may also need him to design or draw the construction plans for those structures or those landscape features, ponds or aquatic gardens, retaining walls, all of those things. They know something about what they're doing when they're laying those into the plan, but they also need to know something about the construction of them and how to tell you or the company you're going to go with that does the work how they want those things built. So ask if they will do specific drawings for construction of the different features in the garden plan. The detail that you need may be different for you than it is for the next person that he's going to deal with. The next person may be a carpenter, maybe a contractor, and knows how to build all this stuff, so he won't need those extra plans. But you may not have that ability or have that capability or interest in doing those things yourself, and will need specific drawings that will help with the construction of those features. So make sure that he can do that, and if you don't want him to do it or you don't need him to do it, let him know that too, because that's going to affect the overall cost involved in doing the plan. Now, if you're talking to your designer, if you haven't made up your mind yet, you might want to ask him a few questions. And these are some questions that I came up with that I've been asked in the past, and I think if I hadn't been asked them, I probably wouldn't have done a good job for these people. One is, how long have you been in business? Well, of course, you want to know if that person's had a lot of experience. So that's a perfectly reasonable question to ask. Can you show us some plans you've designed? And that person should be able to have some plans available that you can look at that he's done. So that's also a really good question. How did you learn to do this? In my particular situation, I learned from failures. I did this from start to finish, started 50 years ago with no experience, and gained the experience over time by making a lot of mistakes. but also went to school, also took a lot of classes, a lot of courses. There's all kinds of certifications and things like that that you can get as well. And if you're dealing with an architect, he's probably got a degree in landscape architecture. So he's going to know a lot about that type of stuff, the design, the building. Just ask those kinds of questions. Then how do you charge? That's a great one because you got to know what you're going to be paying. And some people charge by the hour, strictly an hourly rate. Some people charge by the lump sum. I'll do this plan for you for X amount of dollars. Some will do a schedule where you get this for this amount and this for this amount. If you want this, you pay this amount for it. And then others may have some kind of discounted program where if you purchase the whole block, then you get a discount. How much you're going to pay for the design is very up in the air until you've talked to several designers to know what it is they charge and how they charge, because everybody's a little bit different on how they do it. And I'll tell you a little bit about how I came up with the way that I do it. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it works for me. It's worked really good for me for a good many years. I'll start by telling a little story. I was in the business. I had bought a company out, and it was a very small landscape company. They'd only done, not even $50,000 worth of work in the last year. And this was back in 1976. I started out, we had a man that lived next door that was the original owner of this garden center, nursery, landscape company. And he was still living right next door to the business. So I had him as a consultant for me, which really, really helped get me going. I had only worked in my own yard, never had done any work for anybody else. But with Mr. McVicker, who was the man that had started that nursery some 40 some odd years before me, with him being right next door, he introduced me to a lot of his old clients. He showed me how he did design work. He showed me the plants that he'd had the best experience with. And he took me around and introduced me to a lot of his old clients that he had. And then he would take me out if he got a call. Someone needed some work done, because he still got calls for work and he just he didn't have the time, or he was really getting up in years. He just didn't want to do it anymore. He'd been doing it a long time. He introduced me to those people, took me out there. He did the whole thing. He did the plan. He told me what to draw. And I was a pretty good draftsman, so I knew how to draw in scale, what the different scales were that you could draw in, and I had a drafting board and all that, so I was prepared for that part of it. And so I had been doing that then for several years, going out and doing plans for people, not charging anything. And then I got so busy, one time I had drawn a really nice plan for these people. And I went and presented that plan and the proposal for doing the work, because we did a design build, which is you do the design and you build it, you put it in as well. Gave them all of that stuff, left them a copy of my plan. I left that evening after work to go home, and 2 or 3 days later, there's another landscape company in the front yard doing some work. So I drove by and I knew who it was, and I didn't stop, but I, waved at them as I went by, and they knew who I was. And I watched that job, and as that job progressed, it was my plan they had used. Absolutely to the T. Everything, every plant, every bed, all the shapes, all the stuff that I had drawn on my plan was being put in by somebody else, and I didn't get anything for it. So right then and there, I made up my mind that I was not giving away plans anymore. So I started right then and there charging for it. At that time, I charged $35 an hour. Well, back in 1970, probably 7 or 8, that was okay, that was pretty good. So I started charging, and I would go out on consultations and charge by the hour, and it worked. People hardly ever turned me down. They wanted me to come out. They had things they needed to ask, problems they wanted to solve, plans they wanted drawn. So that's how I got started charging for it. Get down to a few other things that you need to do or know when you're talking with a designer. I think I mentioned up front that you need to have a good rapport. You need to kind of get to know this person. You're going to be working pretty closely with them over time to develop a plan. So it really helps if you get along. So it's very important that they check all the boxes and you're comfortable with their proposed fees and you're comfortable with them and you think you can work with them before you hire them. But if you do feel comfortable, and you've got plenty of references and they've answered all your questions, go for it. See, now that you've interviewed 1, 2, 3 designers, architects, whatever the number, you're going to probably pick the one that you feel the most comfortable with, or the one that's charging you in the realm of what of reality of your budget is. And you feel like they can fulfill your needs within that budgetary constraint that you've given them. My suggestion is go for it. Get them on your side and get with them and start working on your project and see if you can come up with a workable design that you like, taking advantage of the attributes of your property, the pluses and the minuses, and just see where it leads. I think if you're comfortable and they're comfortable and your budget is in the realm of reality for you, I wouldn't hesitate. I'd go ahead and hire them, get started on your project, see how far it goes, see what comes of it. And remember, if you get to the point where there's just something that you're not liking the way it's looking, make sure you let them know. A designer doesn't know unless you tell them that you don't like something in their plan. And there's so many options that he can come up with that it's best to let them know right up front when you see something. I really don't want a patio there. I don't think I would use it if it's over in that part of the yard. Can you move it somewhere else that makes better sense for us? And yes, they can. They can do whatever it is you tell them you need done. And don't let them give you any flack. It's not their job. They're there to please you, do what you want them to do. I'm going to end with that note. Please like and subscribe if you get anything out of this. I hope you did. And I really enjoyed it. You can subscribe if you got anything out of the video. Hopefully you did. I'll be back with some more. We'll see how this goes. Thanks so much for watching.